Question 1. The first line of the poem contains an example of what? And here we have a question that requires you to be familiar with literary devices. You probably got this one really quickly, but we'll take the opportunity to go over some of these devices now. A. Caesura. This is a break or pause in meter, and if you read over this line, you'll see that the meter is a consistent iambic meter. She walks in beauty like the night. So it's not A. B. Ellipses. This is referring to the three little dots like this that indicate a pause or missing words or a trailing thought or something like that. We don't have anything like that here. C. Metonymy. This is substituting the name of something with one of its attributes or something closely related to it, such as referring to the film industry in America as Hollywood or using the word track to refer to horse racing. There's nothing like that in line 1. D. Simile. This is a comparison that uses the word like or as, and of course we have that right here. She walks in beauty like the night. So D is the correct answer. E. Metaphor. This, of course, is a comparison that doesn't use like or as, which we don't have here. And the correct answer is D. Simile. Question 2. The first stanza of the poem also contains what? Here, you're required to know more literary devices and terms, and again, you probably got this one pretty fast, but we'll still run through them. A. Alliteration refers to the sound device where the first consonant sound in two or more words in close proximity is the same, and we have examples of that here in line 2 with cloudless climes and starry skies. So A is the correct answer. Looking quickly through the rest for a review of these terms, B, a heroic couplet. A couplet is two rhyming lines in succession, and our rhyme scheme here is A, B, A, B, A, B, so we don't have any couplets. A heroic couplet in particular is two rhyming lines in iambic pentameter, and here, since we have 8 syllables rather than 10, this is iambic tetrameter rather than iambic pentameter. So, no couplets here, and certainly no heroic couplets. C. Irony. The speaker is perfectly sincere in this first stanza. There's nothing to indicate any form of irony, so no. D. Slant rhyme. This is when words sound similar, but they don't quite rhyme. The rhymes in this stanza, night, bright, light, skies, eyes, denies, are all true rhymes, so there isn't any slant rhyme. E. Understatement. There isn't any of this either. All that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes is actually closer to overstatement or hyperbole, although it doesn't have to be. But certainly the speaker doesn't make anything sound less or less important than it actually is, so no. And the correct answer is, of course, A. Alliteration. Question 3. Which of the following best paraphrases the meaning of lines 5 and 6? So we can read through this stanza to get the drift of these final 2 lines, 5 and 6. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meets in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. This is one of those questions where you just need to follow the grammar and the logic of the passage. And you can see that he's following up this idea of all that's best of dark and bright meeting in her aspect and her eyes. Nighttime has both dark and bright. You have the dark of the sky contrasted with the brightness of the stars. So in the lines in question, when he speaks of day as gaudy, he is contrasting it with the tender light of nighttime, where you can have light and dark simultaneously. Based on this, the best answer here is B. The woman's beauty is nuanced like nighttime as opposed to the straightforward and overly bright daytime. The woman's beauty has all that's best of dark and bright. It's mellowed to that tender light, unlike the gaudy bright light of daytime. Glancing over the rest of the answers, A. The bright light of daytime erases all shades of beauty, and C. When daytime is too cloudy for light to shine through, all beauty is lost, are not supportable at all. D. The woman's beauty is compared to that of heaven, is not supportable either. For one thing, the speaker is comparing the woman to night, not heaven. And for another, heaven in line 6 is denying tender light to gaudy day. And the speaker isn't speaking of the woman's beauty denying anything to anyone. So clearly, heaven isn't a metaphor for the woman's beauty here. The last one, E, daylight denies night its soft light, might be a tempting answer, but remember that heaven is the one doing the denying in lines 5 and 6. Daylight would be the gaudy light of day. So daylight isn't denying day the tender light. Heaven is denying day the tender light through daylight. And the answer that best fits the context is B, the woman's beauty is nuanced like nighttime as opposed to the straightforward and overly bright daytime. Question 4. The difference in focus between the first and second stanzas is that what? And this question is really just asking you to read carefully. Our first answer is A. The first stanza limits itself to the woman's outward appearance, while the second conjectures about what goes on in the woman's mind. So here in the first stanza, we get that she's beautiful, that all that's best of dark and light meet in her aspect, which is her appearance, and her eyes. So the first stanza does limit itself to her outward appearance. Looking at stanza 2, we see that the speaker says that on her face, thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. He is conjecturing here about her thoughts or what goes on in her mind, so A is a very well supported answer. B, the first stanza focuses on imagery of the night, while the second stanza focuses on the imagery of the day. The first stanza does have imagery of the night, along with some imagery of the day. However, there isn't any imagery of the day in the second stanza, so B is not a supportable answer. C, the first stanza relies on a simile, while the second relies on allegory. While there is a simile in the first stanza, there isn't anything about the second stanza that makes us believe the speaker is using an allegory, so we can't support this answer either. D, the first stanza describes meeting the woman, while the second describes the speaker's first impressions. The first stanza doesn't describe a meeting between the speaker and the woman, and the second stanza is continuing with the speaker's impressions from the first stanza rather than describing first impressions, so this isn't supportable at all. E, the metonymy of the first stanza is transformed into a simpler metaphor in the second stanza. There is metonymy in the first stanza. Heaven here is used to refer to God or the cosmos or some larger authority which could deny tender light to gaudy day. However, we don't have that metonymy transferred into a simpler metaphor in the second stanza. The speaker doesn't mention anything that indicates the heaven at all in the second stanza. Instead, he starts the second stanza by carrying on with his thought that her night-like, nuanced beauty is perfect. If there were one shade more or one ray less, it would not be so perfect. Notice that this answer might trip you up if you realize that there is metonymy in the first stanza, but you don't read carefully or understand what the poem is saying. And the best answer is A. The first stanza limits itself to the woman's outward appearance, while the second conjectures about what goes on in the woman's mind. Question 5. The attitude of the speaker is best described as one of what? This is a question that is really asking about tone, which, as you remember, has to do with the attitude of the speaker and or the author. We can quickly eliminate B, active discomfort, because the speaker certainly doesn't seem to be in discomfort. His focus is all on the woman rather than himself, and everything he says is positive. We can also get rid of D, mild confusion, as he is not confused about anything. The only thing he's talking about is the woman, and he is quite clear about the way he thinks of her. And for the same reason, E, conflicted admiration, can go because there's nothing conflicted about his admiration. He wholeheartedly admires this woman. That leaves us with A and C. A, unbridled enthusiasm. We don't have any diction here with which we can support this answer. The speaker comes across as sincere but calm and in control. Nothing indicates unbridled or uncontrolled enthusiasm. C. Deep adoration. It's clear that the speaker believes that this woman is beautiful, inside and out. His descriptions of her include words like pure and dear. And if you think of the author and the speaker as the same, you could even say he thinks enough of her to write this poem in praise of her beauty. So, of the answers that we have, C, deep adoration, is certainly the best and the only supportable answer.